Today we talk about a job shrouded in mystery with our friend Colin Yoder.
You're listening to the Dudes and Dads Podcast, a show dedicated to helping men be better dudes and dads by building community through meaningful conversation and storytelling. And now, here are your hosts, Joel DeMott and Andy Lehman.
Joel,
Andy,
you look like you've been traveling.
Yes, I have. Andy, I walked in cornfields, I heard voices, and renewed my bromance with famed actor Kevin Costner.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, spent a little time in good old Dyersville, Iowa. Everyone can't get enough of Dyersville, Iowa.
Never been.
Yep, as many have not, but for those of you that are in the know and are big fans of the 1989 classic film Field of Dreams, that's where we spent our weekend. Did a little baseball tournament out there. Got to play catch with my kid on the Field of Dreams, that historic
pretty sweet
movie site. So that was super fun. Played some good baseball games, got some wins in, lost to the semifinal with a hard-fought battle. And then I got done with that, and we got in the car, and we drove straight here to the studio, and here we are, fresh out of the minivan. So, you guys are the first. You guys are the first site that I get to see coming off of a multi-hundred miles.
Oh, I'm so glad though that we're the first person you think of when you come home.
It feels at home. I feel at home now. Like things are all going to be okay, Andy.
Yeah, definitely. So. I'm so glad. Glad for that.
You're welcome.
Oh, yes. Well, hey, guys, we wanted to remind you that this episode is brought to you by That Story Show. Maybe.
Hello, I'm James Kinnison, and I host a clean-cut comedy podcast called That Story Show, where we put your hilarious real-life stories and anecdotes in the spotlight. In other words, you send in your stories, and we share them with the world. We tell stories about embarrassing moments, miscommunications, people trying to get into the wrong cars, silly things kids say, goofy stuff our pets do, stuff we can all relate to and laugh at. So listen and find out how you can send in your own stories to be read on an upcoming episode. Find That Story Show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your favorite podcast app, or just say, Alexa, play That Story Show. Hope to hear from you soon.
Joel, you think we haven't done this show for a long time. I messed up the opening of that. Man.
It's okay. That Story Show with our good friend James Kennison. Check it out, people. It's worth a good giggle. And when he does that little commercial there, I once did get into a vehicle that was not mine.
Oh, yeah. Can you tell me about it?
Well, the Toyota Sienna is our minivan, and there's many Siennas out there, right? Like it's the swagger wagon for the large family. Like that's the thing, right? And I'm coming out of Walmart. I had parked very, very close to this one, but you're like, oh, it's in this area, right? Like you're just whatever. Hit the unlock button on the key fob.
Did it unlock?
So here's the deal. Either the people did not lock their vehicle, and so when I did it, it didn't actually do anything. But
sure,
go open the door, sit down in the driver's seat, and I look next to me, and there's like a woman's scarf in the passenger seat, and I'm like, that is not my scarf, and that's not my wife's scarf. And then I just have this moment of, this is not my vehicle, and so I just very quickly get out, close the door, and then turned, and then ours was just like literally right behind me, like the next.
Oh man, that's tough.
It happens.
Wow.
It happens. It could have been a real scene. Especially if someone else had been in that vehicle.
That would have been
a scary time.
And I've heard of that happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
So did you have the groceries in the van?
So I just had one bag, thankfully. It was like, because we went to that's how I saw it in the passenger seat, because I went to sit it in the passenger seat.
Oh,
and I'm like, this is not my stuff. And this van is clearly not occupied by 4 children, because it was also way cleaner than ours. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Joel, before we get into tonight, I do want to remind you also that this show is brought to you by our Patreons. So if you want to be a Patreon supporter of us, head over to patreon.com/Dudes and Dads Podcast, and you can monthly support us.
You want to support us. We'll get the swag. We've got new swag that we're developing as we speak. Guys, we would do this job for free. In fact, we actually do. But we do have a few expenses that come along our way. We had to keep the lights on, both literally and metaphorically, and would love it if you could partner with us. So thanks so
absolutely.
much for all your support.
And if you are watching live, we are broadcasting live tonight on YouTube. And so if you are watching a live, comment, and we will get that comment on the show tonight.
Ooh,
so yeah.
Send in your comments.
Yeah, we love it.
Oh my goodness. Gosh.
Well, before we go any further, we want to welcome Colin Yoder.
Colin.
And to our show.
Yes.
There we go.
To this place.
To this place.
To the studio. To the airwaves.
Yes.
Colin, hello. Good to have you here.
Hey, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, yeah. See, for
now.
Yeah, for now.
Until we get to the Dudes and Dads podcast.
That's the thing. People, they come in here and they're always so excited, and we're excited to have them. And then they, at some level, disclose their reservations about the show,
right?
Mostly because we're hard hitting. We're a hard hitting show. We ask all the really riveting questions, tear people down to their very core,
absolutely.
and then maybe build them up by the end. But no, seriously, Colin, we're just going to have a chat, and it's going to be lovely. And the thing is, I did the cold opening because I said, hey, we want someone who has a job that is both interesting, but like, we think that everyone can relate to in some way, shape, or fashion. And so we're like, who's our friend who's got something that's got who's just a little bit off the beaten path? You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that Colin himself is off the beaten path. Some would argue.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
But we're always interested in hearing people's stories of what they do. This is something that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different. So let's just start here, Colin. We always like to do what we call the dad stats. So you get to tell us about yourself, your family, kind of your background, all of that sort of what you do. Let that cat out of the bag, and then we're just going to do a deep dive, and I'm going to ask all the questions that I can think to ask, and then Andy will think of all the questions that he can think to ask. And by the end of this, what was a mystery before, hopefully will be slightly
all revealed.
Maybe less. It's a tell-all.
Yeah.
It's a tell-all episode. Man, we're promising a lot. Here we go. So, Colin, tell us about yourself, my friend.
Well, if I'd have known this was going to be recorded on YouTube, I wouldn't have worn this shirt.
No, that shirt is
I like that shirt.
perfect. It says I'm professional, but I'm here to party. So good.
Okay, well, I'll tell you. I'll start with my family.
Yes.
I've got a wife. Her name's Mackenzie. We've been married for almost 12 years.
Almost 12. When's the anniversary?
September.
Okay. Mental note.
September 18.
Yeah, I'm just,
Men.
whenever someone says it on the show, I'm like, I just try to remind them hey, I've asked you this so that it is in your mind so that you can be preparing.
Yeah. So it's good
don't
that
forget.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is good that you know.
Thinking ahead.
You know what? I feel like, I think it's 50-50 with our guests here. When we ask them the anniversary, some do the hesitation, some know right away.
So for me, it's usually I can tell you the date, but I can't tell you how many years.
But
we just hit 18, so I know that right offhand.
I hope that sticks. That's good. Yes.
So yeah, wife Mackenzie, daughter Natalie. She's 8. She's going to be 9 soon. So she's going to be going into 3rd grade.
Ooh.
Yep.
Nice.
Growing up quickly.
Yeah.
So it is the 3 of us plus our 2 cats. And they're very important members of the family.
I was going to say, are you specifically, I had a long discussion this past weekend with a few families about our cat situation, because everyone has a cat story, good, bad, or it goes a lot of different ways. Would you guys say that you're cat people?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. You've never regretted being cat people?
I have.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
This is the man that I need to hear from right here. Yeah.
If it were up to the girls, we'd have
more
16 cats.
You'd be really cat
Wow.
people.
Yeah. So
wow. Okay.
we've got the 2, and the 2 will do.
So,
But I love them.
okay. All right. How old are the cats? So the cat's been around for a little while, or
They're like 7 and 8.
okay. So they're kind of in the mainstream of your family. You kind of all figured each other out.
He just did what some of our guests do with their anniversary. It's 7 or 8 years we've been somewhere around there.
He was like 7. He knew the dates.
One's
Right.
7 and one's 8.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got some cats. No judgment here. We now have a cat, and as I've told people, we have what I refer to as the COVID cat because I had opposed a cat for so long. But when 2020 hit, my judgment, a lot of things just went out the window. I made some bad life choices, and the cat was one of them. Mr. Waffles, if you're listening, I'm sorry. Anyway, so Colin, and we love, man, Colin's family. What a great bunch of people. We love you guys so much. You're a good time. The thing that we want, the mysterious part, because I hope you're all picking up on, like, Colin is a normal dude. He's a dude. He's a dad. He's a normal kind of guy, but yet he has a profession that I mean, not too many people have. It is. Mm-hmm. You'd consider it a unique profession.
Yeah,
correct?
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
good.
sure.
So I want you to tell us about what you do.
Okay.
And then I want you to tell us, how in the world was it that you came to do the thing that you're doing? Because my senses and recollection that was not always the career path for you,
right,
as you saw it.
Right. So, yeah, so I'm what I call myself a funeral director.
Yes.
And that's
is that what other people call you?
No.
Okay.
Undertakers,
yes,
morticians.
Perfect. We're gonna get. I want to get into the jargon in a minute. You can help clarify.
So
but, okay.
So that's what I would call myself.
Yes.
A
Funeral director. Okay.
And so I'm a funeral director. I work at Yoder-Culp Funeral Home, and I've been doing that for a long time now.
How long have you been at Yoder-Culp?
20 years.
Oh my word!
Almost. Yeah. Now, not quite all of that full time, but
wow.
Yeah. So I've been there a long time now, but like you said, it wasn't one of those things that I knew I was going to do right away. Okay. Now, it's a family business.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so my dad has worked there for a number of years, but I went through high school and college sort of door wide open to, what the possibilities may be.
Yeah.
And really what ended up happening was I got sick of working at the golf course. And so like once...
As one does.
So one summer, I just said, hey, Dad, I'd like to have a little bit of a job.
Sure.
Get paid a little bit to do something. You got anything there that I could do? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. He had all kinds of things for me to do.
Let me ask you.
So that's how I got.
Yeah, that's how you got plugged in.
Yeah.
It's because it is, and I also want to ask because I'm interested about the family dynamic of just the funeral business as it is, because there's it kind of is a generational thing. But were you the kid that was like, listen, Dad's got this got this business, and I just don't want to. Like, I don't want because some kids are like, I don't want the handout of like, oh, my dad's going to get me a job. Like I want to do my own thing. What was your relationship growing up with what your father did?
Yeah. I look back on it now and I don't think I knew as much as maybe my daughter knows. Like okay. I don't remember knowing quite what it was my dad did.
Gotcha.
So it was a little bit of a, mystery to me in that regard.
Gotcha.
It wasn't really until I was older, maybe in high school, that I really sort of clicked with me what's going on here.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Yeah. Now, and what's funny about that is that, I followed him around, all the time growing up, even as a 6, 7, 8-year-old kid. Mom, in the summers or whatever, he'd take me out running errands and we'd have a donut or whatever in the lounge and, those kinds of things. But I still didn't really know exactly what was going on.
So as a kid, are you hanging out at the funeral home?
Well, sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Not a lot.
But that's still an interesting, it's an interesting situation, I think, to be in.
Right. Well, and at 6 and 7, you, again, like you were saying, you probably don't really fully grasp what's happening there. So for you, it's just I'm at work with Dad.
Yeah. I mean, somebody had to watch me for a couple hours, so I'm following my dad around. I mean,
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So your dad's in the biz. He's in the business. And, was he first generation funeral director, or is that it goes back even farther?
Goes back even farther. So my grandpa, so my dad's dad, and then my dad's uncle. Okay. So there were two brothers.
Yeah.
They built and started the funeral home back in 1954.
Man, all right.
And so then my dad and his brother were second generation.
Gotcha.
And now I'm third generation.
Wow.
So,
and here's the deal. Many third generation is when it stops.
I know.
Do you, right now, does your daughter have any interest? Do you know? Have you had the conversation?
Well, I mean, maybe. So my approach to it is, I hope, going to be very similar to what my dad's was. I mean, there was no pressure to go, I want you to work here and I want you to do this. It was none of that. It was all my own seeking that out. Now, the thing that she likes to do, Natalie, is she likes to play funeral director, on the phone.
Oh, gotcha. Ooh.
So, because answering the phone is a big part of our job.
Yeah.
You know, if it rings at 8:00 at night, sitting on the couch,
right?
We're reading a book or doing whatever. I got to answer the phone.
Yeah.
And so she's heard all that, those kinds of things, and so that's one of the things that she likes to do. She takes a little phone out and she sort of practices.
Gotcha.
And she's Yoder-Culp Funeral Home. This is Natalie.
Getting the phone presence down.
Yeah, and and she kind of makes up the conversation, and she does a great job. I mean,
I'm sure.
I think we can get her.
You can hire
get her
her
on the payroll here pretty soon.
That's awesome.
So I don't know whether she
Yeah.
she will or not, but she has fun with it.
Now, does your wife do things involved with the funeral home too, or does she have a job outside of that?
She does. No, she does work at the funeral home. And so her and I are both licensed funeral directors.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we both went to mortuary school at the same time. So we met each other there.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
This is what I love. This is what I love about their story.
So that's how it worked out. And so we were, by the time school was over, we were pretty serious.
Yeah.
And she moved to the area and we got her hooked in. She actually didn't work at our funeral home at first. She worked in Napanee for about 10 years.
Okay.
And now recently she's been working part-time for us, maybe the last 2 or 3 years.
Gotcha. What, as I think so many of us would ask, the dynamic of working with your spouse, what have you guys had to figure out in order to make that work well?
Yeah. Well, I think overall it's gone well. I think the thing to know is that we've all got our own methods, right, and manners, and how we may.
Yeah.
And so you've got to kind of let people do their thing their own way.
Gotcha.
And so, but it's been good. We actually share a little office space now.
That's so nice.
Yeah, and so we get along, and we get to eat lunch together, and
well, and I think we've talked with people before on the show who have had spouses work with them, but not only does your spouse work, but then your dad also works there too. So it's like a full
a family
get together. Yeah,
real family
and you were telling me before the show that it's gone well. Like being a family business, it's actually gone really well.
It has.
Yeah, and I would just say, primarily in my pastoral work, I think most of the funerals that I've been associated with most of them have been connected with Yoder-Culp, and I will just say we've just been so incredibly impressed again and again with the professionalism, with how you guys handle things, and again, I've just been super. I think you guys have a real legacy for sure of because it's a service to this community too. We've said it again and again, especially in my time here at Clinton Frame. Really consider what you guys do to be a vital ministry to the community, because when in one way or another, I guess you could say most people are going to interact with either you guys or another funeral home of some sort. There will come a time. And it's just such a reassuring. I think it's a real blessing that you guys have. I think probably the family dynamic comes into play in that. Just the approach and the family understanding to caring for people so well. So I did. That was my plug for just what they do, because I really.
I'm a full believer. I mean, yes.
Yeah.
The experience is yes. Same here.
Super good. So your initial educational background was not toward mortuary school. Was after you had finished a bachelor's degree, right? Because you were at Bluffton, right? So you did like a Bible and ministry degree program, yes? Am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah. I got a religion degree with a Bible focus.
So did you feel like pastoral work was in your future?
I don't know that. I don't know that I would say that.
Okay.
I sort of toyed with the idea of going to doing more school.
Okay.
Because I thought if I was going to do anything in that field, it may have been higher level teaching.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I have a lot of respect and appreciation for pastors, but there's a lot of things out there that I think I would have trouble being able to handle or deal with. And you know, I mean, keeping an entire church happy seems like a big job. So
depends on the church, but you could say that. Yeah, that seems. It's so interesting though, Colin, because I think from the flip for me is I see what you guys do. I mean, there's so much of a pastoral component to what you guys do, right? It primarily, like, I get the benefit of, yes, I am interacting with people maybe on the worst day of their life, but I also get the benefit of like being with them on like the best day of their life, when a child is born, or when they're, you know, for their wedding, or like anniversary stuff or things like that. So it's like, okay, I get that kind of the that balancing, whatever. But for you guys, like, you do funerals. Mm-hmm. That's what you do. So they're built into what you're doing is a care for someone that is going through a loss. It's funny to me for you just to say like, oh, there's things that I just don't know that I could handle, and I'm like I don't know if I could only be on that side of the coin.
So I was really fortunate in my starting out sort of years that I had a number of good experiences with people. And those experiences were kind of the things that sort of drove me into really being serious about going to mortuary school, for example, because I was in college, hadn't made up my mind yet. Am I going to go to mortuary school? Am I not? I'm not sure. And I was able to have a moment that I'll never forget of just a woman and her son, just in tears, hugging me and thanking me for what it was we were doing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was like that experience was like, you know, I could really do something that can make a difference in someone's life, and it can turn a tough situation and it can become positive in a way. Yep. And so you can help somebody sort of through that, and there's a lot of emotional satisfaction and gain in that, and that's really what pushed me.
Gotcha. Yeah. So speaking of kind of caring for people in their time of need, what are some of the things that you are mindful of when a family comes to you and needs to have your services?
Well, you want to always sort of be mindful of the dynamic.
Sure.
And so, especially when it's a group of people that maybe you don't know very well, you try to start kind of slow and sort of figure out what are the family dynamics here. Some families are very well put together and there's no issues and everyone's there and they're on the same page. And then other times, not the case. Maybe they don't get along at all. And when there's second marriages and divorces, and so you're always mindful of what it is you're saying and how it is you're going to say it. Yeah. You just want to be careful in how you speak to people.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because there are some things you don't want to say. You know, when they come through the door, you know, you don't greet them, hey, how you doing today?
Yeah.
Well, right. I mean, so you're sort of always mindful of how it is you're going to interact with somebody. And you want to be sensitive to that situation.
That's good. Yeah. There's pastorally, and most people don't mean it. We've said our things on this show too, when we're talking about like grief and loss and things like that. Like, some people mean well, but there's a lot of dumb things that people say in those moments of grief. And I know that I to your exact point, am just always trying to like take a moment. And I think it's just good advice for anybody. Yeah. If you're working with, talking to, meeting with, whatever the case is, someone that's gone through a loss, take just a second and think of what's the best thing for me to say in this moment, and what should I avoid? And it always is. I just think it's like that just taking that second and stepping back can do a lot to help a person, because we get into that situation, we haven't thought about it ahead of time, and like the first thing that pops into our mind is probably not the right thing. I so often think. So, okay, so this, we talked about all the different, all the different terminologies, because you graduated with a bachelor's degree and then you went on to mortuary school because the, which this is a good thing. There is a licensing requirement. There's an educational and licensing requirement. So first of all, how long does it take you to go through mortuary school? Like what's the course there?
Okay, so mortuary school itself is a 2-year track. Okay, so out of high school or whatever.
So you can
go right in. And it's a 2-year track.
Gotcha.
So you're looking at a year of kind of general education at the college level, and then a year of mortuary studies.
Okay.
So that's your 2 years, and you end up with an associate's degree.
So Colin, can you tell us, because this is where I want to peel back the mystery. I think it's okay and good to be curious about this without being weird about it. But like in the mortuary science side of things, like what are you learning? What sort of things are you? Because you're like, I'm guessing you're working on cadavers and things like that, correct? So what are the kind of the foundational things that like you need to be able? Because I'm guessing that, by the way, not everybody can hack it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So we showed up first week of school. We've got 75 people in our class. Okay. 2 weeks into school, we've got 45. Okay?
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah.
So I think it was a lot of people recognizing, this isn't quite what I thought it was going to be.
Sure.
But so course-wise, to answer that question, it's they break it down sort of into 2 parts, which they call like an arts side and a science side.
Okay.
So some of the arts things are more of along the lines of grief work, interacting with people,
soft skill kind of things.
how you're having conversations, sort of going down that road, because that's a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
And then the sciences is probably the things that people think of more. So we're learning embalming, we're learning blood tracing, we're learning some restorative arts kinds of things. I mean, every one of us had to have a clay head that we had to make, design it after somebody, their likeness. And so we're doing those kinds of things too. How far apart should eyes be, and what are the dimensions between your lips and your nose? And, so kind of studying that part of that, so that if you're recreating something or if you're posing something, you know where things should go.
Right. I think so I'll just say from like personal experience where someone who has been, the nature of their death has been relatively traumatic in some way, shape, or form. And you're always wondering, you have the conversation, will this be an open casket? Will it be a closed casket? Because sometimes the damage is so extensive, right? That there are limitations to that. How do you guys make the determination? Like what is the process by which you go through to say like, okay, like this is a possibility that we can, because it's helpful for the family, right? Like I just from a pastoral standpoint know to be able to see the body and to have that closure,
There's some closure
and to work
there.
for that is helpful. And I'm guessing that's always the goal with you guys, if possible. What's the conversation like? How do you determine moving forward in that kind of a situation?
Yeah. So we're always determining, we're having to get permission from somebody, on whether or not we're going to be doing embalming or not.
Okay.
And so embalming is the key to that viewing time.
Okay.
So if we can secure that permission, then we'll go ahead and do what it is we need to do. And when it is those traumatic sort of circumstances, we try to be very upfront with people, about that, and say, there is some damage here. We're going to do the best that we can. And then our goal is usually to get at least one person or 2 or 3 people from that family group to come in and view that body.
I see.
And sort of therefore then be able to kind of make that determination, like, hey, this actually looks really, really good. We're pleased with that. We think this is something that people can come and see.
Yeah.
That's always the best case scenario.
Gotcha.
There are other times where it doesn't go that way.
Yeah.
But at least we're offering that time then for those people that need to see.
Yes. Sure.
And then it's not so much a public thing, but maybe just a private thing.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
So that's kind of how we try to.
Yeah, and I think that's the part of like people don't think about there is a as you said, kind of an artistic side. I've had your wife. I've heard people say of your wife is that she does some like even for women, like some of the best like cosmetic work that they've ever seen, which is a really, I mean, I guess in her profession, like that's a high compliment for sure. Because again, I mean, let's just face it, we are dealing with people that are deceased, like making them look more lifelike or, put together in an appropriate way that we're at the viewing when people would see them, it wouldn't be their appearance would not be a distraction in that viewing, which I guess would be the thing. Because I've for myself been at a family viewing before and this was a while ago and not anywhere around here, just to be clear, but like where it's like, that's not good, right. Just not good. And it was a distracting experience for the family. And so, I think it's just an interesting connection of the artistic piece of that being part of the closure and the moving on for people. But as you said, okay, so you start off, your class starts off with 75 people. Is there just similar to like a doctor or a surgeon or whatever? Do you think there's a certain, I don't know, is it like a built-in skill to be able to handle dead bodies? Is there just something that like, it's like, yeah, some people don't have the quote unquote the stomach for it or whatever the case is. And do you feel that is something that's like developed over time, or is it like either you got it or you don't? Well,
I think people figure out pretty early on, whether they don't have it. There's always situations that aren't pleasant.
Yeah.
And they're tough.
Yeah.
They're very tough to deal with. And I think part of it is, okay, professionally, it is our duty to care for these remains. And so we're going to do it the best that we can. And sometimes it's a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
I think it comes down more to, are people sort of programmed to just to be able to do the work overall, and even not so much just with the dealing with the death, but you've got to have a passion, for it, for you to really be happy doing it.
Yeah,
because it's late nights, it's long weekends, it's covering holidays. You don't get the summer off.
Right.
I mean, it's just, and that's just the reality of it. Now we at our funeral home, and we have a fairly large staff. I mean, so we're able to share a lot of those responsibilities, but it's long, hard work. At times. And I think that's the piece that some people miss out on. Because when people are at the funeral home, they kind of just see us sort of standing around, shaking hands. How you do, But in reality, all that work that went in happened obviously before everybody showed up.
Right. I mean, well, because people die whenever they die, and there isn't a scheduling of that sort of thing. And so let's just, I'm just in a kind of a concise sort of way. Let's walk through the quick timeline of you get the phone call to the day of the viewing. How does that whole process usually, as we continue to peel back the onion and remove the mystery from the job, what does it look like?
No, that's a great question. So it almost always starts with a phone call. Okay. And the phone call can come from various places, a nursing home, a hospital, a family member. But anyways, it's a phone call, and then it's what we call a transfer of remains or a removal. So we've got to go to the site where the death happened. We generally send maybe one or two people to do that. So the remains then have to come back to the funeral home, and then sort of during that time, we are in touch with that family, and then sort of setting a schedule. Do you want to talk today sometime, or maybe it's late at night? Do we want to meet tomorrow? So we're setting that up. That way we can sit down with people and gather the information that we need to, and then work through setting up those arrangement times. There's a lot of things that go into that unless you've done it, you don't quite think about, because we're getting information so we can file a death certificate. We're helping people write obituaries, and so we're talking about life interests and hobbies and family members and who all survives still and who doesn't, and so there's just a lot of things to walk through, and then sort of the planning of, well, when's the viewing time going to be, or when's the visitation time going to be, and the funeral time going to be, and so a lot of those steps.
Yep.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned in your previous statement about some people just don't have what it takes. Obviously, this is something that you're dealing with a lot of emotions, and you're dealing with death. That's got to take a toll on a person. How do you deal with that and keep that from affecting you and your family? Because I know for me that would affect me.
Yeah, and it does. I think it affects us all.
Yeah.
So I think knowing the reality that is the case, knowing that is a good start.
Sure.
Because I wasn't so aware of that maybe for the first number of years. But what the state of Indiana has done, there's a Funeral Directors Association. This is a new thing. They've actually given to the members of this group an outlet for that.
Oh, wow.
Free, on-call people to talk to.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Because there has been a problem in Indiana of funeral directors not being healthy.
Okay.
I consider myself very lucky because I've got a wife that understands it.
Sure.
I've got a dad that understands it, and I'm working with 5 or 6 other people that they all get it. And so, when we have a bad day or we have a tough moment, we've got people right there that said, hey, I can sit down and, man, this happened today and it was really tough. And, or I can go home and I can, so it's nice to have those outlets, and you need them because if you don't take care of yourself emotionally, it will fester up.
What have been the hardest experiences? Like in general, if you were just to kind of describe the nature of the category of the things that are hardest for you personally.
Well, I think the young deaths, I think, are always probably the hardest.
Yep.
Because you see people in there that are my age,
right,
that are dealing with something that was obviously tragic, and those are the tough ones, because you can sit there and you can say, well, this could be me, right, and so. How would I feel if it was my daughter?
Yep. So the proximity to your own experience when it brings it just closer. That makes a lot of sense.
It's not the natural order of life.
Right.
We're not supposed to be doing funerals for these people.
Yep.
So I think that's pretty easily the kind of the hardest thing to deal with.
Culturally speaking, Colin, and this is sort of we'll call it the big philosophical question. When you kind of look at our culture, just in general, globally, various cultures handle death in a number of different ways. How do you think we're doing with our? If you could give a diagnosis on our how we deal with death in general, what would you say? What have you noticed?
I don't think it's the best. I really don't. I think people too easily think it can be pushed to the side.
Okay.
We may not choose to do a service right now because it's just not a good time, for whatever reason. And so the service can be pushed and pushed and pushed and maybe never happen. And I don't think that's a real good way to deal with death. I think there's a lot of people that are too scared to think about death and to talk about death.
Yeah.
Culturally.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that's a good movement. And I feel like we are in a way sort of heading that direction.
Okay.
I mean, COVID didn't help.
No.
When we couldn't gather and do funerals. And so it was like, well, we'll do it 6 months from now. Well, we still can't do it. So we'll do it a year from now. And whether that event happened then or not, I don't know. But there is sort of that mindset of, well, I understand Mom died, but gosh, we could probably wait until October to have the service. And there's something I think that needs to be needs to be dealt with there.
Does it seem to you that just like as a general rule, there needs to be some level of ceremony around a loss?
Oh, totally. I totally think that that's a true statement.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of research and things that back that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, we need ceremony. We need memorialization.
Yeah.
In those moments.
Yeah. What is I feel like your profession, like there's been a lot of, for lack of a better term, I don't, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is my total layman perspective, like innovation in your industry, right? We're always talking about various industry, like technology and things like that. Like things are, this is the future or whatever. Is there any sense of that within your profession, or does it feel more like more of a kind of a set course that is down the line?
No, I think there's a lot of new things coming on the horizon, and some of it is happening on the coasts already. So alkaline hydrolysis would be something.
He's used fancy words.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
I would just look it up. Okay. I don't sit here and explain it.
Okay.
But then there's like a composting thing that's kind of going on. So I guess those would be some of that.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's methods of disposition that we're trying to.
Sure.
Gotcha.
I think the green movement has been around for a long time. It hasn't really hit Indiana much.
Okay.
But this idea of like really natural kind of burials, which I think there's some good thought behind that.
Yeah.
There's some things that I can get behind there.
So, okay. So this is the other question that these are, again, just weird questions that I think of, like cemeteries, right? Like they fill up eventually. Is there ever a concern that like you run out of cemetery space, or do they just find a way to like make new cemetery plots? Because like all the cemeteries that I've been to, they've like, it's very clear, like I can see where they've got this section only left, and then I know that they don't own any of the rest of the property around it. Yeah. Like what will happen? Because we're getting older, like as a country or whatever. I just feel like people do continue to die. They continue to pass away. What's the future? What's the future of cemetery space? That's what I'm curious about.
Well, from what I've been told,
so there is a conversation.
Yes.
I'm glad in the industry. I've wondered.
Nationally speaking,
yes,
there is not a concern that we're going to run out of room.
Gotcha.
For cemeteries.
Okay.
I mean, some cemeteries fill up, but there's more.
Gotcha.
Here in Goshen, we're very fortunate.
Okay.
I mean, we've got a lot of cemetery space.
Yeah.
And they've got a lot of room to expand.
Okay.
And there's actually some neat things going on in Goshen cemeteries. They're looking to do some planning and getting some new things kind of put in place for people to have more options.
I think cemeteries, when they're laid out well, and when you've got like larger ones, it's actually a really interesting, like historical to kind of like take I think like Violet Cemetery down here to like, it's this really gorgeous, like wooded along the river and in the, kind of through a winding road and whatever. Like there's some really interesting things. Now, if you're a person that like doesn't deal with death well, or you've got like the heebie-jeebies about all of it, maybe not. But I think it'd just be really, really interesting to see, like people that everything fought in civil wars, or that, or you begin to realize, by the way, guys, we are living way longer than a lot of people did, and you kind of gain an appreciation, I think, for some of that. But Colin, I think the nature of, I mean, is there in your profession, does there continue to be interest? Is there a concern? Like I know in various, because in anymore now, in some various professions, the profession is dying because there is not as much interest or investment in that particular profession. What does it look like for folks within your industry?
Yeah, well, there's a definite concern. Less people are going to mortuary school.
Okay.
Less people are graduating from mortuary school. And so, yeah, there is that sort of that concern there of what are we going to be able to do to get people interested in doing this?
Do you think there might be a connection with like just how we're handling death in general, or just kind of the distancing of it, or is it just maybe there's just not the awareness? Maybe it's a both and. I wonder.
I think too much of it is people getting too discouraged. They're trying to get into the industry and they go work somewhere where they're not treated well. They're maybe abused a little bit too much, and so they're deciding, I didn't come to work here to wash windows,
Gotcha.
or to sweep out the owner's car. I came here to do funeral work, and so that's been one of the issues.
Okay,
and we're looking at doing a few things in Indiana to sort of help correct that. There's an exam that everyone has to take, and we're actually petitioning right now with the state of Indiana legislators of just being able to remove that test.
Okay,
and saying there's not the validity to it. It doesn't gain anyone anything, and that test seems to be one of the obstacles for people kind of getting out and getting done and getting into the workforce.
Gotcha.
And if it's not really necessary, then let's just eliminate it. So, I mean, we're trying to be proactive in some of these things so that we can because there are quality people out there.
Sure.
Well, they just have to be treated right, and they have to get there.
Well, and you'd think that in the industry, one of the things that we liked about your funeral home is the quality of care. So you'd think that if that's the main objective, that people would be treating the up and coming generation for that same way that they treat them with care.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a really good point.
And as always, we see it in so many places. Just the need for mentorship, to have positive mentorship that was sort of built in for you because of the family business. And I think as always, to have older, experienced people investing in younger people that are looking and exploring, because it's a good job. I mean. It's a professional need, and by the way, you really do get to serve the community. That's the thing. I've just seen it as I've in my pastoral work, as I've just kind of grown in that area too, and I just see them like, man, when this is done well, this is it's just a very needed thing within a community, and I just couldn't recommend that more. And again, for somebody that's like you said, who's maybe not thinking the traditional college route, but looking for a profession, a meaningful profession, and meaningful work, that's a great option. So
it would be.
Yeah. Andy, are we ready?
We are, but I do want to remind people first, though, that we have a voicemail number, and that's 574-213-8702. 574-213-8702. If you'd like to leave us a message about this episode or any other episodes, feel free to do it.
Please do. And unlike Colin, that phone call will not come to us in the dead of night.
No. No, but I think, so we have another guest here in the studio tonight. We have my son, Eli.
Hi, Eli.
And so I think he should do the Dudes and Dads pop quiz.
Oh, there we go.
Say it right here.
All right, here we go, Eli.
He's got
to clear his throat. He's got to set himself up. Here we go. Here it is.
And now it's time for the Dudes and Dads pop quiz.
Nailed it.
Yeah. There we go.
Good job.
All right. So if you've never joined us before, this is the time that we just ask our guests random questions. I mean, they're on a card, but they're random.
Yeah.
And to get to know them a little better, they have nothing to do with the topic tonight. Well, hopefully they have nothing to do with the topic of death tonight, but you never know.
We'll see.
Joel, go ahead and start off.
Here we go. Well, this one comes up every once in a while. If you can instantly become one, what would you want to be an expert in? Instant expert, what would it be in?
Cooking.
Yeah. Your wife is like, amen and amen.
Yeah.
Okay. Cooking.
All right. I need to get a different card.
Okay. I'm going to ask the next question. No, you want to go? Okay, you go. You got it. Okay.
Nope.
Eli tried hard. Eli, in all fairness to Eli, he did shuffle these cards. He tried to shuffle as well as he could.
But okay. If you could undo one moment in your life, what would it be?
Wow. So I had a paper route growing up.
I like where this is going.
And I'm out delivering papers, and I got bit by a really big dog.
Oh.
Right? Yeah, right in the leg.
Oh.
And so for many years, I was like hard and fast, not fans of dogs.
Yes. Thus he became a cat person.
I'd like to rid myself of that memory. So that I could move on.
Pretty amazing. Colin, who is your favorite hero of fiction?
Of fiction?
Of fiction.
What kind of a hero?
You name it. You get to choose. It's wide open.
Man. Well, I was always a Superman guy. Loved Superman.
Yeah. Good.
All right. What is the trait you most deplore in yourself? I hate this question, but
deplore is like a really strong word.
Yeah. I'm not so good at communicating all the time.
Okay. Really?
And that can be a problem.
Interesting.
So I'd like to be a better communicator.
Yeah. I've got something to say about Colin's communicating at the end here that I
okay.
And it's going to be meaningful, I promise you. Colin, who are your heroes in real life?
In real life? Well, my wife and my daughter. Why? Because they put up with me every single day.
Gotta be a hero.
And they still love me.
Yes.
So they are truly amazing.
What a good dudes and dads response right there. That's
all right.
Is that a cop-out answer?
No, not at all.
Okay.
That's solid.
All right. And the last question is, what is your reoccurring nightmare? Oh man. That's a tough one to end on too.
No, I've had one.
Oh.
So I've had it many times where I wake up, in my dream I wake up and realize that I have not attended a class for the entire semester.
Oh.
Yes.
And it is now the last day.
Yes.
And I've got to take an exam. And I never once showed up for the class the entire year. I've had that dream.
Interesting.
I bet 12 times.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Jack, I think my wife has had a very, very similar. It's a very, very similar dream. School apparently is really
rough
traumatic.
for
It's
people.
traumatic for all of us. Yeah. Just what I was going to say about Colin's communication. Colin, and I'm going to try to rope him into some other future speaking gigs. Colin's a good preacher, by the way. He can teach he knows something about teaching the Bible. So, but here's the thing. People like, and I know for me, people are like, oh man, just love the communication, whatever. It's like, well, we do have the advantage of having some time,
right?
That it's not like just off the cuff. Right. At least it's not for me. I'm not doing that, right? And so we have a little bit of time to prepare. So I would just say, in Colin's defense on the communication side, every communication that I've ever received from him has just been
spot on,
top shelf.
Sweet.
Top shelf.
Thank you.
Oh, boy.
Colin, well, thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your insight into a job that not a lot of people know about.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And guys, get with it. Check it out. We'll make Colin embarrassingly easy to find if you want to reach out or ask questions. I'm sure you'd be happy to answer questions about your profession, what you do.
I think the more people know, the better off we are.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, hey, as always, guys, you can head over to Dudes and Dads Podcast.com
there you go, singing again.
all the show notes and all the goodies. Dudes and Dads Podcast @gmail.com, where you can leave us whatever words that you want to share with us. Maybe some encouraging words, ideas for future shows, or a strong rebuke. I don't know.
Strong rebuke. Wow.
Whatever you want to do, that's where you can find us. Make sure to like and subscribe and follow and share what we're doing on this show, because it helps other people find it. So we always appreciate that. Andy, any closing words?
We just ran out of music.
Hey, nicely done. Well, hey, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. And until next time, we wish you grace
and peace.